In today's unit, we're going to discuss diffusion. So by the end of this particular unit, you should be able to describe the process of diffusion and also explain the effects and also the importances of diffusion in living things. So let's dive in. Diffusion can be defined as the movement of particles from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration down the concentration gradient. Now, when we try to look at the statement concentration gradient, what it simply means is difference in concentration of substances between two areas. And this can be illustrated using a diagram, okay? With reference to diffusion, of course, where particles are moving from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration down the concentration gradient, okay? Now, diffusion commonly occurs in different states, or rather just mediums. And these include liquids, gases, and solids. Now, in this particular unit, we only focus on two of these states, and that is liquids and gases. Okay, so let's look at diffusion in liquids. Okay, here is a sample of potassium permanganate. Okay, and a beaker containing water. Now, once this potassium permanganate is lowered into the water, what tends to happen is that the potassium permanganate begins dissolving or starts breaking apart. In doing so, particles will migrate from a region where it is highly concentrated to a region where there is lower concentration. This process will be continuous, and in it being continuous, it will create a mixture that will be uniform. Okay, so this is an example of diffusion in liquids with the use of potassium permanganate, dissolving it in water. Okay, let's look at diffusion in gases. Perfume is an example that we can use under diffusion in gases. Okay, let's say perfume has been sprayed at point A, and you're seated across the room at point B. How will you be able to smell that particular scent of perfume? Okay, because of diffusion. Now, particles that have been sprayed at point A already have gained kinetic energy. And by them gaining kinetic energy, they'll be colliding with each other randomly, which result into some particles escaping that region to a region where there is lower concentration. And that is why a person who's seated across the room will be able to smell the scent of that perfume. Okay? Factors affecting the rate of diffusion. Now, what are some of the factors that we need to understand that affect the rate of diffusion? Okay? So the first one is concentration gradient. Okay? Now, we already know what concentration gradient is. So concentration gradient is just the difference in concentration of substances between two areas. Now, how does it affect the rate of diffusion? Okay, so the higher the concentration gradient, the faster the rate of diffusion. Okay, and again, the lower the concentration gradient, the slower the rate of diffusion. Okay, the second factor that affects the rate of diffusion is the surface area. Okay, so the greater the surface area of diffusion, the faster the rate of diffusion. Okay, the smaller the surface area of diffusing surface, the slower the rate of diffusion. Okay, thirdly, temperature. How does temperature affect the rate of diffusion? Okay, increase in temperature increases the kinetic energy of particles, causing them to diffuse at a faster rate. Okay, particles will diffuse at a faster rate once temperature is increased. If temperature is lowered, the particles will not diffuse faster, but rather slower. Okay? The fourth one is size of diffusing particles. Okay? So the bigger the size of diffusing particles, the slower the rate of diffusion. Okay? The smaller the size of diffusing particles, the faster the rate of diffusion. Okay, So these are some of the factors that you need to understand that affect the rate of diffusion. Importances of diffusion in living things. Okay, the first one is diffusion allows plants to take in carbon dioxide through the leaves and release oxygen as a byproduct. Okay, so this reaction is seen under photosynthesis. Okay, the second one, diffusion allows plants to release water vapor through air spaces of leaves into the atmosphere. The release of water by the leaves or through the leaves is under transpiration, okay, where water is lost through the leaves, the stomata of the leaves, of course. Okay. The third point, diffusion allows oxygen to enter tissue cells and carbon dioxide to leave. This reaction happens under respiration, okay, where oxygen reacts with stored glucose, okay, and the byproducts that will be given out will be carbon dioxide, water, including ATP, okay. Fourth point, diffusion helps release of sweat, thus cooling the body. This is seen in situations where a person, for example, is running, okay, you tend to sweat, and that sweat will cool your body in return, okay? That is homeostasis, okay? Fifth point, dissolved foods move from the blood into the tissue cells by diffusion, okay? This point is seen under holozoic nutrition. So these are some of the importances of diffusion in living things.